The Sahara stretches across a vast 9 million square kilometers, yet people still think they have uncovered all the secrets of this great desert. Who knows what lies beneath this golden carpet? If you're one of those people curious about what this landscape looked like millions of years ago when megalakes spread during the Proterozoic era, then join us today on the TopFacts channel. We will show you a compilation of the 100 most incredible archaeological discoveries ever showcased on our channel. It will be fascinating. Enjoy the show. Let's start with the most astonishing find. In the spring of 2020, a rare piece of an embryonic planet was discovered in a remote part of the Sahara Desert. This rock existed even before the formation of planet Earth. Imagine what the young solar system looked like. This meteorite, named ERG-002, is a part of a protoplanet, a small celestial body that went through a stage of internal melting and became a building block for a new planet. It got its name from the place where it landed, the Dune Sea in Algeria. Scientists concluded that this approximately 70-pound piece consists of several meteorites. They also found beautiful crystals within it. Due to the erosion that occurred on Earth, they deduced that the ERG-002 sample clearly originated from another planet. This volcanic space rock is the oldest lava ever to fall on Earth. According to a study published by the National Academy of Sciences, scientists are proposing a new concept of planet formation during the early stages of the solar system. A group of researchers from the University of Brest in France, led by Professor Jean Barrett, a geochemistry expert, seized the opportunity to study this unique time capsule. They reported that they had never seen anything like it before. Previously, Barrett worked on another project in 2014, studying another rare acid meteorite. Hence, he and his colleagues already had some clues regarding the age of this new find. Barrett concluded that this meteorite was not new to planet Earth. It had weathered, similar to the previously discovered meteorite named Tatooine after the fantastic planet in Star Wars. The weathering of rocks in the Sahara occurred quite rapidly. The protoplanetary crust, consisting of partially molten lava, eventually solidifies. By analyzing the magnesium and aluminum content, the age of the nugget can be determined. This rock was found to be approximately 4.566 billion years old. Now we know that it is the oldest piece of cosmic lava ever found on Earth. We are talking about an ancient megalake lying beneath the desert. Scientists have found evidence of its existence beneath the sands of the Sahara. Due to the wet phase of the Holocene, flooding in the Nile Valley reached extraordinary levels. About 250,000 years ago, the Nile River flooded the eastern Sahara and created a lake covering over 42,000 square miles. This mega lake was situated at an elevation of 810 feet above sea level, and a smaller lake, covering 18,000 square miles, rose to approximately 623 feet. Geologist Ted Maxwell from the National Air and Space Museum and his colleagues stumbled upon signs of the lake while examining radar topographic data from Egypt. Geologists reconstructed the lake's profile by comparing images of sedimentary deposits formed by flowing water and wind-carried sediments. The radar detected distinct channel features. Egypt lies in a very arid zone, and the radar was able to find them up to 50 feet beneath the surface of the Karga Oasis. This is the southernmost oasis in Egypt, and precisely lies on this ancient waterway. The water currently sits 9 feet below the surface, and the land has been plowed for watermelon cultivation. So, the water from a 250,000-year-old lake is helping people in agriculture. It appears that the Nile may have once flooded the entire depression, turning it into a massive lake. This conclusion was made by examining fossilized remains of ancient fish found in deposits approximately 250 miles west of the Nile at an elevation of 810 feet above sea level. Scientists also discovered that the settlements near Salima and Tafa in Egypt were located on the lake, which covered around 42,000 square miles, and the people who still live there are descendants of those who chose to stay close to the water. Another archaeological landmark was found in the Karga Oasis, 93 miles west of the river, indicating the second lower level of the lake we mentioned earlier. By calculating the height of the Nazca Channel, through which water flowed from the Nile into the desert, scientists determined the size of the lake. The next discovery that might surprise you even more: the vast desert was not like this 1,000 years ago, but rather a vast tropical forest. Relatively recently, about 6,000 years ago, the Sahara was covered in greenery, with rainfall occurring. However, due to sudden changes in global weather conditions, this once green area turned into the driest place on Earth. Robert Corti, an associate professor of atmospheric sciences, and his colleague William Booz from Yale University reported that using computer simulations based on data from instruments during intense tropical rainfall, they were able to recreate the image of how rain fell thousands of years ago. What caused such a drastic climate change? Scientists also cannot understand how the rain belt shifted so far north of the equator, as when it moved, the Sahara lost its source of water. If this happened before, it could happen again. By studying weather changes in the Sahara, scientists will be able to forecast how the climate will change across the entire planet in the future. Where there is water, there are also animals. Scientists have found the remains of horrifying monsters that roamed and swam in these lands. An ancient crocodile the size of a bus led paleontologists on a search throughout Tunisia, and they discovered the world's largest prehistoric marine crocodile, measuring over 30 feet in length and weighing about 3 tons. The skull alone was over 5 feet long. The study's author, Federico Fenti from the University of Bologna, explained why the crocodile was so massive. This creature occupied the top of the food chain during its time on Earth. The National Geographic Society formed a research committee, and together they found more fossils buried beneath several inches of sediment on the edge of the Sahara Desert in Tunisia. While many fossils had been found there before, scientists were amazed by the beauty of these discoveries. The crocodile was named Macamosaurus. The skeleton was deeply buried, so Fenti and his team spent 2 days excavating it, and this specimen became a treasure trove for people eager to study the past. Researchers also found fish and turtle bones in the area, and due to the abundance of marine remains, it suggests that a marine lagoon existed here in the past. Such a predator could hunt peacefully in the water, waiting in ambush for its prey. Compared to other crocodiles, studies of the head and short teeth showed that this recently discovered animal had a very powerful bite, allowing it to easily bite through a turtle's shell. It was believed that this species of crocodiles became extinct around the end of the Jurassic period, about 150 million years ago, but this specimen lived about 130 million years ago, so the numbers don't add up. This raises doubts about the theory of mass extinction. What actually happened at the end of the Jurassic period? Another strange animal found in the Sahara might help answer that question. Scientists from Egypt have discovered a fossil of a whale that had 4 legs. This animal lived about 43 million years ago and went extinct. But you understood correctly. Whales used to be able to walk. The researchers conducting the study stated that this creature had unique features in its skull, indicating a predatory feeding style. Such a whale was extremely dangerous, and the chances of escaping from it were minimal. Scientists compared it to the present-day orca, but can you imagine a killer whale coming ashore and eating anything it could find? The scientists named it Anubis, after the Egyptian god with a dog's head, associated with mummification and the afterlife. Unexpectedly, it was found that these whales were once herbivorous, resembling deer, but at some point they became carnivorous. Perhaps soon we will be able to determine when exactly these whales underwent such a radical dietary shift. The Sahara is a treasure trove of fossils. How about a dinosaur with the face of a bulldog? This impressive crested dinosaur, resembling a giant bulldog, was a predator of the Cretaceous period, measuring about 20 feet in length and weighing 3 tons. Like a crocodile, it was the top predator in its territory. This unnamed theropod was a relative of the fearsome Tyrannosaurus rex, whose remains, over 98 million years old, were discovered by scientists in the Bahariya Oasis, about 180 miles southwest of Cairo. According to the research of Bilal Salem, a biology graduate student at Ohio University, this place was once one of the most terrifying on the planet. Its razor-sharp teeth, short limbs like its cousin the Tyrannosaurus rex, but massive claws made it even more dangerous. This fierce killer with keen senses of smell and incredible speed could even hunt the Spinosaurus. The flat bones under its skin reached a length of 6 feet and were surrounded by a network of fine veins that pumped blood and colored the sail, allowing it to change color to attract mates or intimidate enemies. It could also regulate body temperature by absorbing heat. The discovery of one of the most terrifying predators of the Cretaceous period has allowed scientists to expand the catalog of dinosaurs. It makes you wonder what other new dinosaur species are hiding under all that sand. Let's leave the dinosaurs alone for a moment. We need to talk about a fascinating stone. A study published in the Journal of the Royal Society Open Science claims that a stone found in the Sahara Desert is the first evidence of the most powerful event in the universe. Scientists from the University of Johannesburg believe that the stone called Hypatia, discovered in 1992, is the first physical evidence of a Type 1a supernova explosion, one of the most significant events in the universe. Researchers have established a timeline for the birth of Hypatia, a time when the Earth, the Sun, and other planets in the solar system were just beginning to form. They reached this conclusion by finding a series of very peculiar clues in the chemical composition of a small piece of the stone. The theory suggests that Hypatia was born when a giant red star, essentially a dying star, transformed into a white dwarf star. This white dwarf, in a binary system with another star, ended up on the same orbit. The hungry white dwarf eventually consumed the other star and then exploded. This led to the formation of Hypatia's parent, and at some point, the stone started hurtling towards Earth. But the fire upon entering the Earth's atmosphere and the heat of the Egyptian sand sea shattered the parent stone. Finally, a small fragment of the formation landed on Earth, offering us a glimpse into the events that gave rise to it far in space. A puzzling mystery for scientists and archaeologists is a blue stone found in the country of Sierra Leone in West Africa on the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. In 1990, Italian geologist Angelo Pattoni stumbled upon these unusual stones during an excavation. He had never seen an opaque blue stone like this on African soil, despite having extensively studied all the local minerals. The locals shared a legend about the origin of the finding. The celestial stones were actually cursed creatures that once lived with the gods in the sky, but as punishment for their actions, they were transformed into stones and forever banished from the heavens to the earth. A complicated story. Pattoni wanted scientific data, so he sent the stones to laboratories worldwide. The analyses revealed that the blue stones had a unique chemical composition never seen before. And despite belonging to Earth, they were called celestial stones due to their composition, which sparked many debates and theories. One of them suggests they are fragments of a meteorite that fell to Earth. This likely happened so long ago that even the crater has weathered, and the meteorite fragments are deeply buried within the layers of the Earth's crust. The color of this stone is also very peculiar and does not resemble any known mineral, such as lapis lazuli, for example. Its composition has nothing to do with earthly minerals, and according to scientists' assumptions, it has an extraterrestrial origin. Whether you like it or not, Africa is splitting in two, and this fracture is truly extraordinary and terrifying to think about what will happen next. However, the division of the continent does not mean that the land will be split into two parts, although that is actually what is happening here. It is most likely that a new ocean will emerge from the cracks in Africa. Of course, this process will be gradual and take millions of years, but the continental fracture means that we will have a sixth ocean on planet Earth, a phenomenon that will forever change the geology of the continent. In 2005, a 35-mile-long rift already formed in the desert of Ethiopia. Africa is part of the East African Rift, and we have always known that the African plate has been splitting. But the new rift in the Ethiopian desert indicates that the division is not as gradual as we thought. This is worrisome, as it is terrifying to think about the future. The only thing that is evident is that it is inevitable. This fracture will actually place an ocean between the two new plates, and countries that previously had no access to the sea, such as Ethiopia and Uganda, will have their own coastline. A phenomenon that could potentially boost their economy and provide them with a connection to the world. The potential to become a small, independent continent on its own can generate conflicts. But we hope that is far in the future and that this terrifying fracture will not bring anything detrimental. In Namibia, there is a real mirage, and paradoxically, it is one of the most eerie and pessimistic sites in Africa. The Skeleton Coast in Namibia is highly popular and is an area of special attention. It is a wide coastal line, and its most interesting feature is the sand dunes that rise behind it. The coast is inhabited, but at the same time it is an immense open-air cemetery, with skeletons of wild animals such as lions, hyenas, and other predators scattered for miles and miles. The coastline is simply composed of piles of white sand, making you think that you are in the Caribbean Sea. But these eerie skeletons definitely remind us that this is not a resort, but rather a bay of the dead. In addition to the skeletons, you will also find hundreds of abandoned or shipwrecked vessels near the coast. For centuries, this deserted beach has been the resting place of mighty ships that once proudly sailed the turbulent waters of the ocean. We can only speculate about what happened to the people on board. From time to time, Africa shows us why it is considered the birthplace of humanity. For example, in the groundbreaking discovery of 2013, scientists and archaeologists found a new, unknown species of humanity, a hominid that lived alongside the ancestors of modern humans. This extinct species was discovered in Africa in the Rising Star cave system, which was crucial in putting this place on the map as the starting point of Homo sapiens evolution. The team knew that by venturing into the cave, they would rewrite history. The innovative venture began when two amateur archaeologists, Stephen Tucker and Rick Hunter, decided to focus on the least explored part of the cave. Their risk paid off in a very isolated part of the cave, where they found a chamber with doors so narrow that a human could not pass through them. But the journey had to continue, and Tucker and Hunter were amazed when they first saw inside the chamber a place resembling a burial, covered with hundreds of bones. These bones looked primitive, with small jaws that definitely did not belong to modern humans, making it clear that the intervention of professional anthropologists was needed. According to one theory, this chamber was indeed a burial place for at least 15 individuals. But here is the enigma. Burial in funeral-type chambers is an exclusive feature of sapiens, so it is likely that these species were not entirely primitive. Their bone structure was markedly different from ours, but there were also some striking similarities, like the teeth. This newly discovered species, named Homo naledi, is a hybrid species between the primitive and modern human. This ancient human seemed to have civilization in terms of respect for the dead. They buried them, unlike previous species that simply left the bodies to decompose, and some even feasted on the dead. Undoubtedly, this finding rewrites the history of human evolution. There is no doubt that the achievements and progress of the ancient Egyptian civilizations are difficult to underestimate. Archaeological evidence shows that they had top-notch urban planning, a well-developed ritual business, and they literally built pyramids with their bare hands. It is possible that this is why there is a hypothesis that extraterrestrials helped the Egyptians in constructing one of the wonders of the world. Others believe that the civilization kept the technological prowess of their great inventions, such as the pyramids, a secret, and historical evidence of these technologies simply hasn't reached us. The Egyptians, it seems, guarded their know-how very well, and it appears that the temple of the goddess Hathor in Dendera served as a repository for that knowledge. The temple itself does not look intriguing, but the inscriptions on its walls have sparked much debate. In one of the inscriptions, there is a clear depiction of a priest standing on lotus flowers, holding a staff entwined by a snake in his hand, and the snake seems to emit beams of light. We can also see people surrounding the priest, as if they were trying to follow the light or witness a miracle. Now, considering the close intertwining of Egyptian mythology with religion, let's suppose that these drawings could be a typical mythological plot or a story about a deity. Isn't that right? However, historians have an opposing opinion, suggesting that all the depictions of the priest and the snake are not religious symbols, but an early reminder of a light bulb. The slithering snake is actually a filament or wire. The lotus is a kind of nest that gives life to the light bulb, and the column or tube surrounding the snake is actually an early version of a lamp fixture. Historians have dubbed this theory the Dendera light bulb. And even though there is no archaeological evidence confirming whether the Egyptians had electricity or not, this theory remains popular to this day. The Egyptian pyramids hold countless secrets, and many archaeologists continue with ambitious endeavors to unravel some of them. Some have hit the jackpot, but many expeditions have ended in complete failure. Archaeological missions are our sole source to learn more and more about the mighty Egyptian civilizations, and now we know enough about Africa's antiquities to write books. But is it enough? In 2015, a Czech archaeological group stumbled upon the tomb of a previously unknown royal family in which they discovered a fascinating individual. The inscription on her tomb stated that she was once the Queen of Egypt and the wife of the ruler. The tomb was found in the necropolis of the Old Kingdom, southwest of Cairo in Abusir, and it can be confidently said that the queen existed during the reign of the Nefer dynasty. She was likely the wife of the pharaoh for whom no previous information existed in the Egyptian archives. Almost 1,200 years ago, on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, at the mouth of the Nile River in Egypt, there was a bustling city that was an important trading center. Merchants embarked on adventurous sea voyages to obtain and sell their precious goods. In its time, this city was one of the most significant hubs of its civilization, renowned for its wealth, and the Greek historian Herodotus described its picturesque views of the Nile. Descriptions of the city's grandest temple, dedicated to the son of Zeus, Heracles, the mighty Greek hero, have also been preserved. From the same epics, we know that Helen of Troy and Paris visited the city at the mouth of the Nile before the Trojan War. The city was named Heracleion, but until that moment, archaeologists could not find the slightest evidence of its existence, and many believed that it was simply passed down in myths from generation to generation. Perhaps the only source of information was the mythological chronicles of Herodotus, which provided oral testimonies of people who had visited the city. It was believed that if the city existed, the Mediterranean Sea could have swallowed it up, but in the year 2000, everything changed. Frank Gaudio, an underwater archaeologist, founded the European Institute of Underwater Archaeology in 1987 with the hope of discovering ancient submerged cities. It was only in 1996 that Gaudio expanded his search to the Gulf of Abu Qir in Egypt, focusing on the cities that once existed along the Nile River. 4 years later, he finally hit the jackpot. In the depths of the bay, he found a well-preserved city. Frank and his team could not believe what they were seeing. How had no one stumbled upon the city before? Apparently, it was heavily covered in sediments, and when the team got rid of this special obstacle, their discoveries became monumental. It seemed like the ocean had kept the city safe, especially for their team. The archaeologists found 64 shipwrecks and 700 anchors, gold coins, statues of pharaohs, sphinxes, walls with Egyptian and Greek inscriptions, and hundreds of statues of other Egyptian gods and goddesses. But the most magnificent discovery was a 5-meter-tall statue of the god Hapi, the patron of the Nile River. Carbon dating of the granite revealed that the statue dated back to the 4th century BCE, so Frank knew he had to dig deeper. His mission to search for Heracleion continued, and in 2001, his team found the bust of Nectanebo, the founding pharaoh of the last dynasty in Egypt. The inscriptions on the bust, as well as on other artifacts, also revealed the great mystery to Frank Gaudio. Thonis and Heracleion were simply two different names for a great trading city. Thonis was the Greek version of the name Heracles. The conjecture of why the city disappeared underwater also arose. Heracleion could not withstand the rising sea level. Due to the soil characteristics in the region, the process was slow but noticeable enough. At the same time, the flooding was likely catastrophic for the city and prevented any counteraction. And so, the prosperous city sank, which sounds terrifying when we imagine its flourishing splendor and greatness. If you walk through the hills near the modern city of Machadodorp in the province of Mpumalanga in South Africa, you will come across tangled stone walls, and if you find a good vantage point, you will see circular towers and passageways. Who came up with the idea to build such mazes along the remote slopes in mountainous terrain? Even if you try to study the passages with all your might, remember that it is a device too ingenious. You can find the entrance, but the exit is a problem. This archaeological wonder has left many questions. Historians debate not only the origin of the ruins, but also their purpose. It is believed to have been a dwelling for a people in the 16th century. This mini-civilization mainly lived off agriculture and must have used the land in very sophisticated ways to obtain good harvests. Perhaps they made modifications to the landscape to reduce water loss. There is also the theory that they used the labyrinth as a corral for livestock. A brilliant idea, right? Building a magnificent palace for the cattle and having the opportunity to get lost in it. There is another version that this is just a small part of a lost city that once stood in the same place but now lies underground, either turned into ruins by a natural disaster. There is a scientific hypothesis that the stone circles emit electromagnetic waves and sounds at specific frequencies, and that these walls were part of a Pan-African energy system intended for resonance and sound-based gold extraction. However, their purpose remains unknown, but for some reason it is called the Place of Happiness. If you ever have the opportunity to travel to the central western region of Mauritania, you must definitely visit the Eye of the Sahara. At first glance, this place truly amazes with its enormous circles of geometrically precise shape. It seems incredible that such a complex pattern emerged out of nowhere in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Due to the sparse population in this area and the harsh climate, you will not find local residents near these mysterious circles. This region remained virtually unexplored until the early 1960s. Scientists showed interest in it for a very special reason. This structure, called the Eye, or the Richat structure, is so colossal that it can be seen from space. You're not imagining things. Regardless of its origin, this remarkable object proved useful for the astronauts of the Gemini mission as a central reference point to measure their distance from Earth. Given the technological limitations of the time, it is evident that the Richat structure was very useful as a geological formation. But its popularity also generated many theories. One of them suggests that the circular drawing of the Eye is actually the result of a meteorite impact that occurred in the prehistoric days of Earth. A galvanizing meteorite hit the desert and left an interesting pattern on the surface, not to mention the rocks found in the geological dome. In fact, the deposits and minerals found in the rocks are quite common on our planet, that is, of terrestrial origin, and no remnants or fragments of a meteorite have been found near the Eye yet. It was also speculated that this impact could have contributed to the emergence of new forms of life here, but this hypothesis has not been developed. Perhaps the most important thing to understand about the Richat structure is the complexity of certain geological processes that started or took place millions of years ago. Scientists concluded that the Eye of the Sahara is a natural change in the landscape and nothing more. The Danakil Depression, located in the Horn of Africa, in the territory of Ethiopia, may be the most dangerous place on the continent. But let's break it down. The Danakil Desert is a very remote, unexplored, inhospitable, and deadly area for humans. as it is the hottest and driest region on Earth. But it's not just because of the climate that setting foot here is strongly discouraged. This place is deadly dangerous not because of its weather. In reality, this small region on the East African tectonic fault is a true poisonous cauldron. Its pools boil with acid, and you would simply suffocate with chlorine and sulfur particles in the air. However, when viewed from above, the pools are surprisingly beautiful, and the entire area is filled with vibrant colors. The red, orange, yellow landscape of Danakil and the corrosive yellow-green color of the boiling water in the cauldron is a sight that will truly evoke a strange admiration, like all unnatural and dangerous beauty. Scientists believe that this is the only region on the planet that actively kills everything and everyone within its territory. When a group of scientists investigated the pools, they discovered that the lake's pH was 0. This water is like pure acid. Even a small sip of lake water can be deadly for anyone. Around the body of water, you will see thousands of dead or dying insects, and this is not due to the acidic water. The region itself has a high level of toxic carbon dioxide gas. If you approach the lake within 30 centimeters, you will inhale too much CO2 and die within minutes, as in a fire. So it's not surprising that the locals have given the pools the fitting nickname, the Killer Lake. Additionally, there are many small, active volcanoes here, in addition to the acidic lakes and clouds of poisonous gas, so every step in the territory of this Ethiopian attraction could be the last. Approximately 80 human skeletons were discovered during excavations in Athens, at the site of an ancient Greek settlement. They were arranged in a row, some facing up and others facing down, but all had their wrists shackled with iron fetters, with faces reflecting the screams and expressions of terror at the moment of death. Based on dental analysis, scientists determined that they were young men who were killed between 675 and 650 years BC. Why did they suffer such a cruel punishment? According to historical records, they might have been a group of rebels who spread terror under the leadership of the Athenian ruler Cylon, in an attempt to establish a tyrannical regime. They all paid with their lives. The rest of the population rose against the aggressors, and the rebellion was quelled, with many being brutally killed at temple altars, giving rise to the expression Cylon's sin, or Cylon's abomination, meaning sacrilegious murder. They all met a painful death and were buried in the earliest common graves in ancient Greek history. Several years ago, another shocking discovery was made in Peru. A mass burial site was found of children. Over 140 bodies of children aged between 5 and 14 were found in a common pit. According to experts, they belonged to a civilization that lived between the 10th and 15th centuries, and this appeared to be a ritual burial. All the bodies had their sternums opened, suggesting their hearts might have been extracted. This heartbreaking discovery is considered the largest mass burial site of children in the world. The Caribbean basin, in the Mexican area, has always been restless, and it holds the final refuge of numerous ships. One of those unfortunate shipwrecks, sunk here about 200 years ago, was discovered by archaeologists. An extremely rare find, an English ship from the late 18th and early 19th centuries, it became the 9th exhibit of the Underwater Archaeological Park, a true gem of historical discoveries. Imagine, the dying were petrified as statues for thousands of years. These two men were trapped. Two young men, aged 18 and 25, one of them the owner and the other his slave, attempting to escape Pompeii during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, but death sealed their bodies on a staircase in the villa. The volcanic eruption turned Pompeii into ruins, but these two men remained together forever. Their bodies were filled with plaster to preserve the tableau of this historical drama. On the southern coast of Bolivia, another enigma was discovered, sent to the city museum. A creature similar to a human with non-humanoid characteristics. Scientists considered the skeleton with a strange, cone-shaped skull to be a human fetus between 7 and 9 months old that may have been stillborn due to various anomalies. Its body was too small compared to the head and twisted and curved. According to some specialists, this deformity could simply be the result of a genetic anomaly and not an attempt to crossbreed Homo sapiens with non-human species, like in the movie Alien. What you see on the screen is a small figurine only 15 centimeters long, found during excavations of an ancient city in the Atacama Desert, Chile in 2003. Although the figurine appears human, there are significant differences that raise doubts. It has an elongated and convex head and 10 ribs instead of 12. The tiny body was considered an extraterrestrial, but after a detailed analysis, the research team discovered that the figurine belonged to a woman of the human species, whose body exhibited 64 never-before-seen genetic mutations. Due to the discovery in the Atacama Desert, this uncommon object received its own name, Ata. A group of Mexican farmers in May 2007 were very frightened by a strange animal they had never seen before. They sent the finding to a laboratory for analysis. It turned out to be a creature of unknown origin, and its DNA was a complete mystery to scientists. Samples of the three-dimensional scanned DNA molecule were sent to laboratories around the world, and the creature was called Metapec. It was called a creature because its hairless, humanoid-shaped body had some human characteristics, although it could not be called human. Some claimed it could be a hoax, but the people who found this creature claimed it was alive and moving. It is unknown if this sample could be evidence of extraterrestrial life, as scientists continue to struggle with this enigma, as well as the fact that the farmers allegedly found it alive, while the body that arrived at the laboratory was lifeless. Another anomalous discovery on the Nazca Plateau, Peru, has generated debates. A group of scientists claim that the remains found with a deformed skull, large eye sockets, and small holes instead of ears do not belong to a human race. The mysterious 5-foot-tall body was completely mummified in a seated position and covered in white dust. The strange figure had 3 long fingers instead of 5, clearly differing from human structure. Even after conducting complete DNA tests, scientists were unsure of the age of this sample and to which species it could be attributed, but they are certain that the nature of this anatomy is extraterrestrial. A true 72-million-year-old dinosaur. Nobody could believe it until they saw it with their own eyes. This dinosaur embryo, found inside a fossilized egg, was, according to scientists, the best preserved specimen. The embryo, named Malicha in Leon, was discovered in Ganzhou, southern China. Look, this egg is simply a work of art, a sculpture. In this unique position, the fetus developed for 17 days and then changed parking spots. It's truly a rarity to see a dinosaur hatch from an egg, and that some eggs are preserved for such a long time. How big was that dinosaur if one of its tails was gigantic? Watch as this guy patiently cleans the massive fossil with a brush. A colossal tail was discovered in the Mexican desert in the border state of Coahuila, revealing 50 vertebrae belonging to the skeleton of a hadrosaur, or crested duck-billed dinosaur. Yes, there were those too, that roamed our planet about 70 million years ago. These were the first dinosaur excavations in Mexico, and now archaeologists are hoping for more discoveries. Are you sure dinosaurs went extinct? This video is from the Indian province of Maharashtra, where scientists found a rare fossil that has been identified as the oldest dinosaur in Asia. The fossil remains looked more like an ancient rock, and overall this region of India, like a chamber of wonders, is filled with magical discoveries, from fossilized sharks to eggs of extinct species. By uncovering all this, we can learn about what happened on Earth millions of years ago. These excavations look more like a construction project than scientific research, but what they found was more than just a fossilized skeleton. It was the best dinosaur fossil find ever. The Dinosaur Park in Alberta, Canada, is basically a graveyard of bones from different dinosaur species, but this specimen was found with its skin intact. Imagine what it would be like to touch the skin of a dinosaur. Nobody has experienced those sensations before, and the skin itself didn't resemble the skin of any large animal or reptile. The hadrosaur's skin was of a type we haven't witnessed on Earth. Although it was fossilized, it remained preserved for 75 million years. During an artifact search in 2014, a team of divers who plunged into a cave in Cuba were amazed to discover a vast amount of unique animal remains during an underwater expedition. Descending to 70 feet, scientists found an underwater museum of fossilized bones from extinct animals, which were between 4,000 and 5,000 years old. What they could identify were a femur, a large tooth, and part of a front limb. And all these rare parts belonged to an unknown animal that stood 13 feet tall in life and weighed more than a full-grown elephant. In the depths of the Svalbard archipelago, far from Norway, buried under eternal permafrost and mountains, lies the frozen vault of life. Established in 2008, this global seed vault was designed to preserve productive crops from around the world in case of a global agricultural catastrophe. The vast underground chambers house over 1 million seed samples representing more than 6,000 plant species from across the planet. These seeds are preserved at a temperature of 4 degrees Fahrenheit, under conditions that ensure their long-term viability. The goal of the vault is to prevent the irreversible consequences of biological disasters and create what is called a backup of the currently existing agricultural crops. If natural disasters occur, climate changes lead to the disappearance of entire species. The seeds from the vault could help in their regeneration. This is a wonderful example of human foresight and our commitment to preserving biodiversity, as well as our vital resource to ensure food security for future generations. Trapped within the icy trap, there are numerous microscopic bubbles, a time capsule where the Earth's atmosphere is found as it was thousands of years ago. These bubbles are most commonly found in the heart of icebergs drifting from Antarctica and Greenland, and they represent a treasure trove of information about the planet's climate history. Within each bubble is a sample of the atmosphere from that time when the air became trapped in the captured ice. By analyzing its composition, scientists can determine the scale of greenhouse gas formation. For example, the content of carbon dioxide and methane allows for the reconstruction of the atmosphere's composition and the climate of that era. This is a kind of weather report with hundreds of thousands of years of age. Periods of warming and cooling can be identified, helping to support theories about climate change over millions of years. And predictions about the development of the climate crisis initiated by humans can also be formulated. This lake, buried under a thick Antarctic ice sheet at a depth of 2,600 feet, used to be considered a dead zone. But in 2013, scientists managed to drill through the ice sheet and discovered a thriving colony of microorganisms. The discovery of viable organisms in such extreme conditions has expanded our understanding of the boundaries between life and death. These microbes survived in absolute darkness, freezing temperatures, and high pressure. They survived by obtaining energy from mineral-rich rocks. This discovery suggests the prospect that life may exist everywhere in the universe, where there are planets with similar harsh climatic conditions. Deep beneath the ice of Antarctica lies a hidden treasure untouched for millions of years, Lake Vostok, buried under approximately 4 kilometers of ice. It is one of the largest subglacial lakes in the world. The discovery of the lake in the 1990s was a milestone in polar research, despite it being one of the coldest places on Earth. The lake does not freeze due to the pressure of the massive ice sheet above it and the heat provided by the Earth's core, the hottest furnace on the planet. This lake has remained sealed for a period ranging from 15 to 25 million years. Just think about it. And its contents are equivalent to nature on another planet. It would be the most tantalizing piece for all scientists if they had the opportunity to fully explore it. If there are living organisms in the lake, they would have had to adapt to an extremely cold environment, complete darkness, and immense pressure. It closely resembles an analog of extraterrestrial environments, such as the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn. The expeditions to collect samples had to prevent contamination of this pristine ecosystem from the outside. The microbes inhabiting the lake's environment were remarkably resilient to life in the most inhospitable conditions. Thus, Lake Vostok is not just a frozen enigma, but a potential guide in our exploration of life on Earth and beneath it. Glaciers are wonderful deep freezers that can also preserve ancient forms of life, such as bacteria and microorganisms. These microorganisms can survive in icy preservation for hundreds, thousands, and even millions of years. Unpacking these life forms allows us to track the resilience and adaptability of all living organisms on the planet. Some of these microbes have been successfully regenerated in laboratories, leading to speculations about the presence of life in other icy worlds of the universe, such as Mars or Jupiter's moon Europa. So frozen bacteria are not only samples of terrestrial life, but potential conduits to the discovery of extraterrestrial forms. The icy expanses of the planet, particularly the permafrost, grant us access to a frozen archive of biological history that preserves organisms that have disappeared from the world. In this icy repository, scientists have discovered ancient viruses, some of which are older than the entirety of humanity. Prehistoric viruses preserved in ice for thousands and even millions of years differ from any existing viruses today. Scientists have been granted a unique perspective to study the evolution of viruses and potentially gain valuable knowledge about their interactions with their hosts. In 2014, French researchers revived the Siberian pedovirus, also known as the zombie virus, which is 30,000 years old. This giant virus, discovered in the expanses of Siberia and thus named, surpasses all modern viruses in size, and it remains active against amoebas, although harmless to humans. This discovery emphasizes that frozen viruses have the potential for activity. They could suddenly re-emerge in the modern world, especially as the climate changes and glaciers melt. In other words, frozen viruses are not just remnants of our planet's past, but potential participants in its future, posing challenges to both human health and scientific research. By exploring the ice, we discover remains of megafauna from millennia past, but we also find a large number of flora specimens in the ice chambers, plants from the Pleistocene period, an era that began approximately 2.5 million years ago and ended about 12,000 years ago. Here is one of the discoveries made in 2012. Russian scientists found flowers of a plant known as Silene stenophylla, or Smolevka uzkolistaya, which grows in Siberia in an ice cube. These flowers, with an age of at least 32,000 years, were found in a squirrel burrow from the glacial period, preserved in permafrost in a state of absolute freshness. Scientists managed to successfully cultivate plants from cells, thus obtaining the oldest regenerated plant material ever on the planet. And they turned out to be predictably similar to their modern counterparts, undergoing only minimal evolution over tens of thousands of years. This discovery highlights the incredible resilience of plants in extreme conditions and serves as a valuable repository of information about prehistoric flora samples. Additionally, it sheds light on the impact of climate change on the evolution of the plant world. Under the layer of ice and snow on the white plains of the Arctic lies an ecosystem that once flourished here. This discovery was made on Ellesmere Island in Canada, where fossilized forest remnants were found beneath the ice. What a striking contrast to the icy and barren desert that the Arctic is today. These ancient tree trunks and leaves belong to a forest that grew between 3 and 5 million years ago, when the Arctic was much warmer than it is now. The forest consisted of extensive mosses and various species of flora typical of a warmer climate. This forest is like a window into the times when the Arctic was a brightly green plain. Yes, believe it, that's how it was. The forest frog that inhabits Alaska has always intrigued biologists due to its ability to survive completely frozen. During the cold winter, when the temperature is always well below freezing, these frogs enter a state of slowed action. Their hearts stop beating and ice forms in their bodies. In that state, they survive for weeks. When the temperature rises, the frog thaws, its heart starts beating again, and it jumps as if nothing happened. This unique ability allows the forest frog to survive some of the harshest winters on the planet. It is due to a high concentration of glucose in their organs and tissues, which acts as a natural antifreeze and protects their bodies from damage and death. Scientists are studying this species with great interest, as it could provide new ideas for organ preservation in transplant medicine. So, the Alaska frog could bring humanity closer to revolutionary discoveries in the field of medicine. In the Siberian community of Yukagir, a magnificent specimen from the Ice Age was found. A steppe bison, frozen in time. In 2011, the mummified remains of this prehistoric creature were discovered, preserving soft tissues, fur, and internal organs in the ice. It was a very rare find. Steppe bisons, also known as prairie bisons, inhabited the Earth during a period that lasted from 2 million to 800,000 years ago. They were stronger and larger than modern bisons, and this exceptionally well-preserved Yukagir bison allowed the study of the physiology of an animal that disappeared thousands of years ago. Information could be obtained not only about its final moments, but even about its last meal, which remained in its stomach. This gives us a glimpse into the environment of that time, including food chains and ecosystem details. In the snowy deserts of eastern Siberia, another major thaw occurred. In 2015, a local hunter discovered another ancient creature, a hairy rhinoceros. The rhinoceros, named Sasha in honor of the finder, was likely over 30,000 years old. The hairy rhinoceros was an extinct species from the Ice Age that adapted to survive in the cold with its dense and long fur, as well as its 2 horns on its snout. It was a fearsome beast of its time. Sasha, found in nearly perfect and complete condition, became the best preserved specimen of its kind. The study of the rhinoceros's DNA advanced the understanding of the genetics of the hairy rhinoceros species and established its relationship with modern species. In the depths of Siberia's permafrost, a prehistoric discovery was made: a mammoth. Is it an enormous hairy elephant or hippopotamus, you may wonder? It is a representative of a species that became extinct about 4,000 years ago, and its body was perfectly preserved in the ice, as if in a freezer. It was named Yucca. The body was discovered by tusk hunters in 2010, in the region near the coast of the Laptov Sea. Yucca, a female, became an extraordinary find due to her excellent state of preservation. Her skin, hair, and even traces of blood were in excellent condition, providing scientists with an unprecedented opportunity to learn a great deal about her life during that time. The skin turned out to be a pale pink color, indicating that Yucca was in her teenage years and lived on our planet approximately 39,000 years ago. Scratches and bite marks on her body speak of her survival story in the harsh conditions of an icy continent. Paleontologists suggest that she was attacked by predators, possibly lions or wolves, and the cause of the baby mammoth's death was a fall into a natural trap, such as a crevice or hole. There, she simply froze, remaining preserved for thousands of years. The cold temperatures and glaciers of mountainous regions have preserved artifacts from the times when our closest extinct relatives, the Neanderthals, inhabited the Earth. Among these finds are knives and needles carved from stone or bone, providing us with a glimpse into the lives and survival methods of these early humans. Neanderthal tools are primarily found in European regions, but the discovery of such tools in high mountains was a real surprise. One of these locations is the Italian Alps, where ice and cold have preserved these objects for at least 40,000 years. Tools such as scrapers and spears indicate a greater adaptability and ingenuity of the Neanderthals than previously believed. They were able to survive and hunt in severe mountainous climates, and their skills in knowledge and inventiveness proved to be above average. Their creations were skillful and complex, showcasing advanced problem-solving abilities and a deep understanding of their environment and available materials. Moreover, through these tools, a real connection to our own past can be traced. Neanderthals are our ancestors, representing a period in human evolution where survival directly depended on the ability to skillfully interact with the environment. Encased in ice, these tools are silent witnesses of challenging times and can recreate images of the trials endured by the Neanderthals. In 1991, a frozen human body was discovered in the Italian Alps, undoubtedly an unusual find for tourists. The remains of this individual, who lived during the Copper Age, were approximately 5,000 years old. He was named Ötzi after the region, the Ötztal Alps. Scientists were able to obtain a wealth of information about human life in prehistoric times from this mummy. Ötzi's body, clothing, and tools were exceptionally well preserved, allowing for details about his diet, health condition, occupation, and even the cause and circumstances of his death to be established. The tattoos on his body are the oldest in human history, and the body itself is a gift from the time machine, as looking at Ötzi, we can instantly transport ourselves to our distant past and imagine how we might have faced those challenges. This mannequin was created at the foot of a snowy and steep mountain, which people always try to climb. The goal is to make people understand in advance that climbing a mountain is a very dangerous activity that is prohibited for unprepared and inexperienced individuals. In 1993, archaeologists made an incredible discovery in a mountainous region of Altai. They investigated a tomb and found the frozen remains of a young woman. She belonged to the Prehistoric culture, which inhabited the border area between Mongolia, Russia, and Kazakhstan about 2,300 years ago, and was buried with numerous valuable objects. Among them were a mirror, a wooden comb, and a headdress made of fabric and wood. Her body was adorned with intricate tattoos of mythological creatures, indicating her high social status. Through this mummy, we can get an idea of what the ancient Prehistoric culture was like. In 1999, on the summit of the Llullayaco volcano, which separates Argentina and Chile in the Andes mountain range, something astonishing was discovered. 3 Inca mummies, including a young girl named La Doncella and 2 other children. The mummies, which had been frozen in ice for at least 500 years, were in an exceptional state of preservation. There was even frozen blood in one of their hearts. The girl was around 15 years old at the time of her death, and her clothing, jewelry, and personal belongings were completely preserved alongside her. This was not an accident or a common burial, but rather a sacrifice, a cruel ritual of the Incas. The devastating catastrophe of World War II left its mark in every corner of Europe, including the snowy alpine peaks. Over the years, as the glaciers melt, grim witnesses of history have been revealed. The frozen remains of soldiers are the result of the fateful operation Attack on Vemork, when an attempt was made to destroy a Nazi heavy water factory, a component of the atomic bomb in Norway in 1943. Treacherous natural conditions and deceptive terrain caused numerous casualties, with many soldiers disappearing in the cold mountains. As global warming has caused the glaciers to melt, more and more of these remains have been found. Each of these discoveries is a forgotten chapter in military history, shedding light on what they had to endure. The objects found alongside the remains, such as letters, watches, and even food, personalize each soldier as a human being first and foremost. Each one had their own hopes, fears, and loved ones waiting for them at home. These findings also provide answers to the frozen-in-time questions of families who never received news of their loved ones after the war, decades without any information about their fate. These frozen soldiers in the Alps are nothing but a reminder of the immense human sacrifices in this terrible war, and the ice sarcophagus that has carefully preserved them is a witness that does not forgive global evil. Imagine encountering a giant crossing the street. It's scary, right? That's what scientists found in Argentina in 2012. The remains of this dinosaur are considered the largest ever found on Earth. The giant specimen measures between 115 feet long and weighs nearly 170,000 pounds. This species, belonging to the sauropod family, is called a titanosaur. Its enormous skeleton was buried under a thick layer of thick mud. Scientists had to dig deep to find it. A group of 8 people is trying to measure the fossils of a fish. Incredible, right? Yes, it's the skeleton of a massive sea dragon, one of the most significant discoveries in British history. The fossils found by scientists in August 2021 in Midlands, England, were identified as remains of an ichthyosaur that lived about 180 million years ago. Some individuals reached 82 feet in length. The family of marine reptiles appeared on the planet approximately 250 million years ago and went extinct about 90 million years ago. So we are lucky to witness an authentic dragon that also swam. Would you like to see who lived in your garden 3,800,000 years ago? It would be interesting to see what they looked like. Honestly, what scientists found made them exclaim in unison, "How ugly!" Geologists from Michigan conducted research in the remote region of Ethiopia and discovered an extremely rare fossil, possibly an early ancestor of humans. Now, these remains are exhibited in the Museum of Natural History and, according to the researchers, have changed the game in terms of ideas about human evolution. Well, at least tell me it wasn't that ugly. After all, it's an ancestor. We should not think that medicine is a modern technology. Let's check it with the example of ancient Chinese civilization. Archaeologists have amazed the whole world. During the excavation of an ancient emperor's tomb, ancient herbs were found, authentic plant relics that could be over 2,200 years old, and they were perfectly preserved. These are the earliest samples of processed plant-based medicines used in traditional Chinese medicine to treat arthritis. In 2015, during the construction of a road in the northwest part of Iran, another astonishing discovery was made. Ancient catacombs were excavated, and inside rested a strange mummy in a sarcophagus. If it was human, it was unusually large. The mummy was intact, with a perfectly preserved body adorned with gold sheets and precious stones. Its eyes were replaced with coins, and it wore a crown on its head. Due to its extraordinary size, experts believe that the body could have belonged to a historical giant called Anunnaki, and the age of the mummy could be around 12,000 years. If you found a 300-year-old mummy, would you really open it on the spot instead of taking it to a laboratory to do so under proper conditions? And what if inside that coffin there were ancient viruses waiting to encounter the world? This video was recorded in Vietnam, where they found a 300-year-old mummy tightly wrapped in cloth, and everyone gathered to see what was inside. Interestingly, they unwrapped the cloth, apparently expecting to find treasures, without concern for the historical significance of the find. Well, they seemed brave enough to do it all with bare hands. The legends of Egypt are endless. During an excavation in an unexplored desert in 2019, archaeologists found mummified monsters from the Nile. 10 astonishing objects that included 5 heads and 5 nearly complete bodies of enormous crocodiles. The bodies of these unusual treasures were completely intact and were discovered in sand quarries near the western shore of the Nile, each measuring between 6 and 11 feet in length. The purpose of these mummies for the ancient Egyptians remains a mystery of their mystical ancient culture. If the strange Egyptian customs of mummification no longer amuse you, allow me to show you Jerusalem, where in 2014 archaeologists found a very peculiar artifact. During an excavation of an ancient tomb, a group of archaeologists discovered in a hole some enormous jars that were likely filled with treasures. Their surprise was great when they found out that inside those containers were the tiny bodies of 9 frogs, cruelly decapitated. Scientists couldn't answer why decapitated frogs were placed in the jars, but many believed it could have been part of a funeral ritual in the Bronze Age. Unknown structures have been found in Saudi Arabia, thousands of stone trapdoors, as if they were built to trap animals. and some of them appear to be scattered graves in the midst of lava fields. This place was discovered by archaeologists using Google satellite imagery, which explored the land from above. In Saudi Arabia, these stones are also known as desert predators and have very few visitors. The Al-Nasla rock in Saudi Arabia is remarkable because the stone appears to have been split in two with a single strike in the middle, as if a massive laser had cut it with a powerful beam. This natural monument is of enormous dimensions and creates an artistic spectacle for awestruck viewers. The nature of this laser-like cut in the rock remains a mystery, but another question arises. How do the stones maintain their pristine condition? Their surfaces appear to be polished. Many people consider this phenomenon supernatural and believe in the existence of powerful extraterrestrial lasers. After all, who else could have taken and split the rock in half? Number 1. It is possible that aliens ruled the world before humans, and perhaps they couldn't hide all the remains. This video makes us think about that. The unusually elongated skulls and the very heavy skeletons discovered open a new chapter in the history of evolution. After the first one was found in 1928 in Peru in a fairly well-preserved state. Some believe that the skulls could have been deformed over time due to the strange traditions of ancient cultures that used bindings to flatten their heads. But there is still a possibility that they actually belong to extraterrestrial beings. That's how our compilation turned out. If you enjoyed it and would like to see something similar, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and write the keyword rocket. That way I'll know you watched until the very end. Thank you all for watching and see you in the next episode.